The whole Liam Kumar Day effect, not really happening.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I rang up Mendenhall, he said he could make
Don't dig this hole. Phil, credit to the guy, he always manages to do well what he has, but he is a shocking person on that. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-event.
Nah, my life from Rashad Mendenhall.
Right, you go. Cancel. I'm a tag, Jack! I'm a fucking tag!
Welcome to another episode of the LOC Report, and once again, congratulations if you're listening to this. You haven't killed yourself from the ridiculous things that have been happening, nor have you been injured in some miraculous way like pretty much everyone in the NFL. So welcome back. I'm joined again by who's really becoming the co-host now, Coach Merritt at the Talk Clouds. How you doing, Coach? I'm
good, man. How's Freshers been?
It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. This has been my first week of actual uni work, and I've been experiencing the HSC effect, otherwise known as the holy shit effect, as to how much I have to do this year.
Yeah,
but don't fret.
I can vouch for that, mate.
Yeah,
Be busy.
Yeah, sure. Well, that won't compromise the LOC for the next few months, at least, I hope. Ignore the fact that we're doing this on Friday. That was as much everyone else's fault as mine. Anyway, with that, should we get to some league news?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get to the league news then. Alright, as always, we'll start off with the injuries, of which there are plenty. So let's get straight to it. I'm aware we're recording after the Thursday night game, but I'll comment on any injuries or any players that were nicked up before that game. So starting off here, Arian Foster was questionable this week. Obviously, he played last week, coming back from that groin tear. He was questionable for the game. No doubt he would play, and he did. Demaris Thomas had a neck injury in Sunday's game, but it was nothing serious, and he is probable for Sunday. Andre Ellington, I believe, missed last Sunday, still recovering from that PCL injury, but he should be back this weekend. Unclear what his role is going to be now, though, that Chris Johnson has appeared to be the bell cow, and David Johnson has carved out a niche for himself in that offense, too. Moving on, Steve Smith obviously cracked those 4 vertebrae in his back, or something just weird like that. Amazingly, it's only a week-to-week injury. He's not going to be available this week, and he'll be highly questionable for next week. Alan Hearns has continued to suffer a litany of lower leg injuries this season. I believe it's a hamstring now, but he is probable for Sunday. Victor Cruz has not practiced ever since aggravating the calf injury again. He will not be playing this Sunday, and probably not for a few more weeks. Who's next on the laundry list of injuries? Marshall Lynch obviously missed Sunday's game. He's suffering a variety of lower body ailments now as well. Highly questionable, I would say, for this weekend. Wouldn't surprise me if he sat out for another week, but who knows. Randall Cobb obviously continuing to deal with that shoulder ailment, but he'll be fine. Owen Daniels is popping up as he did not practice. I don't know what that's about, but I haven't heard anything, so I would assume he's A-OK for Sunday. Michael Crabtree suffered a nasty-looking ankle injury initially. Well, that's what it looked like on Sunday, but he was fine, and I think actually returned to the game. Ben Roethlisberger obviously still out after suffering that knee injury. He's going to be out a few more weeks, but from what I've heard is he's ahead of schedule. Crockett Gilmore yet to practice after suffering that calf injury, looking a bit more serious than initially thought. Might sit out one more game, has not practiced all week. Andrew Luck continues to miss game time. He missed Thursday night's game with a separated shoulder in his throwing shoulder, not something you want for a quarterback. I think he was a lot closer to playing this week, so he should be back next week, especially since he's got 10 days to get better now. Peyton Manning, he's kind of been on the injury report all season with a back-neck variety thing, but he's full participant in practice. He'll be good to go. Jeremy Hill is probable. He's had a knee ailment, but he'll be fine to play on Sunday. Charles Clay, he's also had a knee ailment all season. Apparently it's a calf now, though, and he's been limited in practice, but he should be fine for Sunday. However, his Buffalo teammate, Carlos Williams, will not be okay. He has been ruled out as of today with a concussion, so he will not be playing. Antonio Gates, I believe he's back from suspension now. Is that correct, Mr. Merritt?
Yeah, I believe he is, which
I
is great
believe he
news.
is.
It's great news for Pakistan, isn't it?
Well, Bedenes have got him. I'm
Oh,
just
it's
looking.
Bedetes. Yeah, sorry.
He's still exempt, which I'm surprised by because I'm pretty sure he's off it now. So he is actually back. Ignore what the NFL site is telling me. He should be activated from reserve very soon. Alshon Jeffrey continues to miss time with his hamstring ailment, which developed from the calf ailment. He hasn't played since week 1. He got in a couple of limited sessions earlier this week, but did not practice today. I would say, again, highly questionable for this Sunday. May miss another game there. Moving on, Latavius Murray was a limited participant this week. He's had a shoulder problem, but he should be fine for Sunday. Pierre Garçon, full participant, nothing to worry about there. He's had a bit of a knee nick, but he'll be okay for Sunday. Leonard Hankerson, also a limited participant. He suffered a thumb problem last week, but he'll be good to go this weekend. He's kind of developed into that number 2 receiver role. Martavis Bryant, although still saying he is exempt, he absolutely is not. He is now off of suspension as well. Will be playing this weekend. Sean McCoy, continuing to suffer that hamstring injury, played through it earlier in the season. Turns out he had a lot more damage to it than he would have hoped. He's actually slated to miss another 3 or 4 weeks, so he'll probably be held out at least through the week 8 bye. Devontae Adams has not practiced this week. He aggravated his ankle injury, I believe, on the kickoff return on Sunday. Absolutely will not play this weekend. You can take that to the bank. Percy Harvin, full participant, another guy who's been a frequent of the injury list this season with the hip injury that he suffered, I think, in 2013, no less. James Jones, limited participant this week. He's had a hamstring problem, but it's nothing serious. He'll be good to go. Vernon Davis missed last week's game with a knee injury. He did not practice earlier in the week, but I believe he got a limited session in today and possibly even yesterday. His chances of suiting up on Sunday, I would say, are probably quite good right now.
Yeah, 50-50.
50-50? Yep, that's usually what the questionable tag entails, so good to hear. Julio Jones, another player that's been dealing with a litany of lower body injuries, toe and hamstring at this point. I would be shocked if he missed the Sunday. He'll be playing, he'll be out there. Des Bryant, obviously still recovering from that foot surgery. He'll at least be held out through the Dallas bye, which I believe is in week 7, so maybe back as soon as week 8. Julius Thomas, it might even be week 6, so he might be back in week 7. Julius Thomas obviously suffered that finger injury in preseason. He's very close. He's logged in a lot of limited sessions, but he has still not technically been cleared. He probably will not, in fact, definitely will not suit up this weekend. Tevin Coleman, obviously suffering those rib injuries. I think he cracked a few ribs or something a few weeks ago. He's limited this week. Wouldn't surprise me if he maybe came back this weekend, but I think they'd certainly ease him in if they did. Duke Johnson, full participant for Cleveland this week. Ankle injury, he'll be good to go. Sammy Watkins suffered that calf injury not last week, I believe the week before. Still isn't practicing. Not sure when he's going to come back. Probably would expect him to miss at least 1 more week. Brandon Cook's full participant. He's had an ankle problem as well, but he'll be good to go on Sunday. As with Travis Kelce, who's been in the injury report here and there, and he's got absolutely nothing wrong with him. He'll be good to go. Nearly there, and then I can catch my breath. We come to my team, maybe not. That comprises half of the injuries in the league. So first off, we have Jordan Reed, who suffered a concussion and a MCL sprain in Sunday's game. He is out this week and could be a multi-week thing. He missed 6 games, I believe, in 2013 with a concussion. Anthony Dixon is bothered by some calf problem. It's not even on the injury report. It's bizarre. He's got some sort of problem that's just making him go a bit slower. But he'll play and he'll be starting this weekend, no less. Deshaun Jackson got in his first practices since week 1 after suffering that hamstring injury. He's been ruled out this week, but a return looks pretty good for next week. Steve Johnson suffered a hamstring injury in Sunday's game against Cleveland. Has not practiced at all. He will not play on Sunday. And I think that is amazingly it. Hooray. We've all survived. Well done. lot of injuries this year. I don't know what it feels like for you, but anytime I see any news, it's just another injury for another big player in the NFL. What do you think?
Yeah, it's been pretty much decimated this season. I mean, you got to feel for the Cowboys, who've pretty much had their first half of their season ruined because of losing like their two most important players.
Absolutely.
And it's been, in fantasy terms, it's been really, really bad especially for teams like yourself, Nave. Like, it's been a struggle, but it's beginning to sort of clear. You're getting a few big players coming back. You're having Dez coming back. You're having
that's for Tom's Tyrants and the Dallas Cowboys. That'll be big. Yeah,
you got also players like it's gone out of my head now. Lynch will be back.
He'll be back soon.
What I'm trying to say is it's looking positive the next few weeks for quite a few of the teams.
Definitely.
But yeah, it has been a killer 2 weeks.
And what's been the weirdest thing is, like, we've seen injuries to loads of quarterbacks too. Usually you can go through a season and not, one of the elite quarterbacks will get injured and no one would bat an eyelid. So far this year we've had Ben Roethlisberger, Jay Cutler, Tony Romo, Andrew Luck. It's just been a bloodbath everywhere.
Drew Brees missing his first ever NFL game.
Yep. It's been a strange year, and Stafford's been nicked up too. But let's hope they're getting it all out the way, so the rest of the season will be smooth sailings, eh? Right.
Really?
Where there's injuries, there is undoubtedly transactions on the waiver wire, and once again, it was another busy week on the waiver for free agents this week. Starting off here, CJ Spiller was re-added to bare necessities, and they dropped Ryan Fitzpatrick. They needed a 1 week rental at quarterback and also at tight end with Gronk on a bye, so they were able to add Spiller back to the roster. Forge Flyers added Charles Sims and dropped Alfred Blue, obviously with the return of Aaron Foster. Blue really does have no value right now. Sims has actually carved out a little bit of a role as the pass-catching back in Tampa Bay. They've been down so much, so he actually has some value. Pedestan added Chris Thompson and dropped Lorenzo Taliaferro. Tom's Tyrants added Kamara Aiken and dropped Brandon Coleman. Kamara Aiken, especially with the Steve Smith injury, figures to be the #1 receiver, especially with Crockett Gilmore out as well.
I thought this was a very good ad. For a short-term game, Tom's did well here. And I also have to question the Forge Flyers there. Not really sort of adding very much depth there. I mean, Charles Sims for Alfred Blue, not really huge amount of difference in those two players and their roles in their offense. So we'll see about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially with Foster coming back and he'll be playing more and more, I think Blue probably relegates to more of the backup role, whereas Sims has actually been getting work in tandem with Doug Martin. So I agree it's not a sexy upgrade in the slightest, but, for fantasy purposes, could he be a flex some games? Sure, why not? Moving on. Yeah, the Tugfards added Eddie Royal, unfortunately, and dropped Thomas Rolls. Andy Dalton Red Zone added Detroit Lions defense and dropped the Cincinnati Bengals defense. Bare Necessities added Marvin Jones and dropped Kobe Fleener. Marvin Jones was dropped to make way for a backup quarterback to replace Andrew Luck, another team that's been hit with injuries. Forward Flyers added Darius Hayward-Bay and dropped Michael Floyd. That's an interesting one. You want to talk about that? I figure you're an expert here.
Well, it would seem a strange one, bearing in mind, Darius got some good work when Roethlisberger was there, but since Vic's come in, hasn't really been used that much. And wasn't Michael Floyd picked up by someone?
Yeah, we'll get to that later. But the more thing I'm keying in on here is Martavis Bryant is coming back, and you figure he's going to take over Bay's role, right?
Absolutely, on the deep routes, he definitely will. And yeah, he's sort of worth a shot if Roethlisberger's there, but with Vic and bearing in mind Bryant's coming back, this is another sort of strange ad here from Forge Flyers. And
Floyd's value is actually getting higher than ever. I think he played a season-high 70-something% of the snaps last Sunday. And with teams keying into John Brown and Larry Fitzgerald, he figures to get more work. Obviously, he's had a slow start. He had that horrific finger injury in the preseason. So, yeah, I agree. It's an odd one. Pakistan added Owen Daniels and dropped Carl Rudolph. They need a bye-week tight end, and Denver play Oakland, so fire up whoever the starting tight end is. Tom's Tyrants added Willie Snead and dropped Ted Ginn. Earlier in the season, Tom's Tyrants tried to catch lightning in a bottle by adding Brandon Coleman, who had a decent week 1, 40 yards and a touchdown. I proceeded to tell him that Willie Snead would become the #1 receiver, and boy was I right. Well, not #1, but he'd be more relevant than Brandon Coleman, which he has been. Willie Snead's actually been okay. Not that Ted Ginn hasn't been bad. I mean, he proved quite the valuable flex last week for Tom Tyrants too. But anyway, Pakistan added New York Giants and dropped Oakland Raiders defense. Tom Tyrants added the Ravens defense and dropped the Packers defense. Tom Tyrants added Cairo Santos and dropped Graham Gano. Gridiron Gang re-added Joik Bell. They also added tight end Richard Rodgers and dropped Ahmad Bradshaw. Gridiron Gang then added Anthony Dixon and dropped Joik Bell. Obviously, Dixon should be in line to start this weekend. Gridiron Gang added the Patriots D and dropped the Jets defense. The Dream Team added Larry Donnell and dropped Eric Ebron. I think they needed a bye-week tight end, and Ebron was a good add, but he got that knee injury in the game.
Yeah. I was going to say he's got the knee injury Monday night.
Yep. The Tugpods added Antonio Andrews and dropped Devontae Parker. You want to talk about this one? I raised an eyebrow when I confess I raised an eyebrow when I saw this.
Yeah. Well, the Tennessee running back situation is very, very murky at the moment. But Antonio Andrews last week had a very nice week. Seemed to
Before the bye.
Sorry.
Before the bye, week 3.
Before the bye week, had a very nice week. Sort of wasn't really reported that much, bearing in mind it is Tennessee. And sort of, there are the three players vying for that starting position, and maybe bearing in mind Bishop Sankey hasn't proved worthwhile in the past season and a bit, and the other guy hasn't done very well either. Who was it? It was McCluster.
There's McCluster. Terrence West is also there.
And Terrence West, not really doing that much. So Antonio Andrews, this is sort of a free shot here. Devontae Parker isn't really going to get into it. Doesn't really look like he's going to get into this offense this season. What with 3 wide receivers who are playing very well in terms of Matthews, Kenny Stills, and Jarvis Landry. So this proved it's quite logical here. It's just to see really if Andrews explodes, and it offers some running back depth there.
The Dream Team dropped Philip Dorsett to make room for Martavis Bryant. Ben Necessities added Alex Smith and dropped Marvin Jones. Obviously, with Andrew Luck missing the game Thursday, and they needed another quarterback once again. The Dream Team added Michael Floyd and dropped Ty Montgomery. We already talked about how Michael Floyd is in the ascendancy, and the Dream Team need receivers, so good move here. Gridiron Gang added Thomas Rules and dropped Dan Bailey, with Marshall Lynch possibly missing another game. Rules could possibly be the starter once again. The Tugfiles added Ted Ginn and dropped Eddie Royal. Foot Flyers added the Cincinnati Bengals defense and dropped Philadelphia Eagles. Then hot off the press 1 hour ago, Badetnos added the Packers defense and dropped Carolina defense. And that is it. A lot of wave moves this week.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of movements within teams, a lot of injuries. It's causing a lot of, and I guess also, as we'll soon find out, a lot of instability in scores, causing a lot of trades, a lot of acquisitions in the midweek.
We'll get to the week 4 recap right now. I think it's fair to say a fairly low-scoring week in the LOC and the NFL. The red zone touchdown montage was only 51. Maybe that's partially explained by the bye, but that was, I think on average it's been about 70 through the first 3 weeks. So take that for what it's worth. We'll start off with what was, I guess, effectively the game of the week last week between the Tuckfards and Iknan. Entering this game, 1 and 2 Tuckfards faced the 2 and 1 Iknan team. No one thought after week 2 that these teams would be on a level record or have any chance to be on a level record. Well, here we are. The Tuckfards win a close one, 97-92. Both teams are now 2-2, and it was a close one. What's your take on it?
Well, it was a key divisional matchup. Obviously, Ignan started off very hot, had a poor week the week before. Tuckfards were 0-2, came back. And really, it was a solid week by both weeks. Let down by a couple of players, mostly at wide receiver. Here we see Thomas, Brown, and Evans combined for about 15 points. And Jones, Hilton, and Jones and Hilton didn't do much. This was sort of won by the running backs, really, for the Tuckfards again. Ingram, Peterson, and Randall sort of producing. But I think as Tom rightly pointed out in his article the other day, this was won at tight end here. That touchdown by Gary Barnage at sort of right at the end of the Browns game, which brought them back into it, was key. Also was the 40-yard Adrian Peterson touchdown run as well. But yeah, those two plays sort of killed off Ignan. Struggling at the moment, bearing with Foster coming back, and their big guns just didn't produce. But that team is still hot. It's still one of the best teams in this league, and that even at 2-2 this season it's going to be a good season for them. They just got to hope that their big players pull it back together, and they really need Roethlisberger back for Andre Brown.
Antonio Brown, yep.
Antonio Brown.
Yep.
I don't know what I said.
Yeah, they also need to, I mean, as Tom also rightfully pointed out in the article, they're doing their best impression of me last year, where I had two very good quarterbacks, and week in, week out, I never picked the right one, it seemed. And it's actually cost them 2 games, you could say. I mean, week 3, I guess you could say, it was more about not playing Bernard, which is absolutely right. But you get the right QB matchup, they win that game as well, I think. So they're not as formidable as I think we expected thus far. I'm not sure if it's a rut or what. I mean, as you say, the injuries to Roethlisberger certainly don't help. Manning's regression certainly hasn't helped Thomas. Foster hasn't been great. You figure he's going to get better. And Mike Evans as well, I think it's fair to say he's in the middle of a sophomore slump right now. So interesting next few weeks for Ignan, no doubt. Our next game here, Pakistan versus Forge Flyers. Forge Flyers winning their first game of the season last week, and Pakistan at 1-2. So they were both at 1-2 entering this game. Pretty close one as well. 94-83, a bit of a low score, but that was kind of the norm in the league. Takes on this game?
I think the first thing we have to say, Devonta Freeman, man. I mean, we all wrote him off last week, and we were foolish. We've been made to look like fools right here. 32 points. That's 2 weeks of scoring over 30 points in a week. It's just absolutely mental. And you think with that score, the Forge Flyers would push on and claim this victory. But it has to be said, 51 points the other guys put up for Forge Flyers.
Yep.
Which, as you pointed out in the power rankings, very, very concerning for them. But Pakistan, a solid week, by no means spectacular, but he did enough to get the win. Didn't look like it on Sunday evening, has to be said. But he got the job done, and you can't ask much more than that. You get as many points as you can, get some contributions all over the board, which is sort of what happened for him. Decker and Allen and Jennings. Jennings was a nice ad as well, getting some plenty of yards from scrimmage. So it's sort of contributions all round. But Forge Flyers, it's a very sobering loss.
Yeah.
Really, their bench, there is not a lot there at this point.
No, absolutely not. And like you said, and like I pointed out in the power rankings, 51 points for the rest of this team without Freeman, and Freeman cannot keep up this untenable scoring route he's been on. And the kicker got 11 points of those 51 as well, so it's just not good. Whereas you say on the other side of the ball, Pakistan, they've been ultra consistent this season so far, pretty much around that mark the whole season. So, they're in the middle of a nice one.
And I think if Forge Flyers, if they were 6 points behind on Sunday night, if they win that game, their season's back on track. You know, they would have been 2-2. Everything would look rosy again. They can build They would have been able to build on a win on a very poor week. But now they look stuck very much in the mire at 1-3.
Absolutely. Next game here, Jeff Seals against Andy Dalton Red Zone. Jeff Seals, obviously now the projection ran team. They've been relieved of their coach. They're 1-2 entering this game, while Andy Dalton Red Zone with the last undefeated team standing, 3-0. You figured that Andy Dalton Red Zone would have walked all over them. You would have been wrong, as Andy Dalton Red Zone dropped their first game of the season here, 102-83.
Well, I think last week I at first said that Jeff Seals would win this game, and then I changed my mind, and perhaps I should have just gone with the gut, because ADRZ, they didn't really get the luck here. Steve Smith getting injured, Andre Green Cincinnati scored 36 points and Andre Green only got 82 yards. That's a bit sobering for him. Ronnie Hillman chipped in, but very unremarkable score there for a team that only the other week scored 150. Mm-hmm. So, but Jeff Seals, they're putting on quite a nice run at the moment. They're by no means a bad team, and it's their second straight week over 100. And 2-2, sitting quite nicely. And what I think is even more telling here is that Rodgers had a sort of an off week because of the opposition he was facing. So pretty positive for Jeff Seals.
Mm-hmm. They got some few bizarre score lines. And Tavon Austin getting nearly 24 and Kenny Stills getting 14. You can't count on that, but as you rightly point out, Aaron Rodgers definitely had a down week by his standards. So I guess there's swings and roundabouts. On the other side of the ball, Andy Dalton Red Zone, yeah, I think it's just a bad week for them. Wilson didn't do a whole great deal. As you said, AJ Green underperformed a bit, so wouldn't surprise me to see this team bounce back. Next game here, Ben Necessities against the Detonators. Obviously, entering this game, Ben Necessities were the only team yet to win a game, while the Detonators were 2-1, coming off of a loss. Ben Necessities have looked like fire all season, but they've just been unfortunate in the matchup. And I think I said it in the preview last week that, this just had the look of a week where Ben Necessities would just, it would slightly come down a bit. And it just felt like one of those games where they would get beat because of it. And it happened again, 107-97.
Yeah, nothing's going his way. The Luck injury, obviously, again, if Luck was in there against Jacksonville, you would have banked on at least 20 points there. And the running game isn't really happening for him because they got two sort of underwhelming starters there. Not having Gronk didn't help whatsoever, but it's not really at tight end that was the problem. It's just the starters for the running back and wide receiver just not producing. But I think you have to say hats off to the Bear Detonators here. I think it has to be said that Ollie's been very, very negative about this season, but he's 3-1. He's 3-1, and this was a really nice week for him. He got some points off wide receiver for once, which must have been pleasing for him. And Jeremy Hill had a very good week with 3 rushing touchdowns. I don't know whether you can count on this team with the way that they're looking like they're inconsistent, especially at quarterback with their sort of, as you said, the regression of Manning. But 3-1 at this stage of the season, as underwhelming as they have been, I think they take that to the bank.
Yeah, but I know it's definitely good. And I think Ben Necessities, they were good this week. 97 is a fine score in the 12-team league that we now are. Just once again, they got outscored, and as you said, they weren't at full strength, and they still managed to put up that score. So I think it's not a weakness. They've just been so unfortunate with their matchups. As you say on the other side of the ball, very, very nice week by the detonators from some slightly more unlikely sources. I mean, 107 when Manning gets 10, DeMarco Murray gets 5, Jordan Matthews gets 5. They're doing great considering that the key players aren't firing. As you say, 3-1. Yeah, I mean, they don't look like they're going to stop. Our next game, we have the Dream Team against Tom's Tyrants. Tom's Tyrants really have been out in the wilderness since week 1. They just have not looked right. Well, the Dream Team actually looked pretty good since week 1. They had pretty bad week 1 and 2 good following weeks. But each team here kind of went back to their week 1 self. Tom's Tyrants, 133 points. The Dream Team, 77.
Yeah, Tom's Tyrants, they hit back here after 2 really sort of bad losses. They really came into this game on a high, and I think the player that really made the difference is Chris Ivory. I mean, he had a career game, but when Chris Ivory plays and he does well, this team seems to win. He's definitely their number 1 running back. Some sort again, like you said, like a few players here like chipping in. Ted Ginn doing well. Danny Woodhead continuing to be quite consistent in terms of getting yards from scrimmage. Not sure you're going to get to see Sam Bradford going as high as 30 every week, but definitely a pleasing week for Tom's. For Viv, I mean, he just one of these rotten weeks. Latavius Murray produced it in week 3, just not in week 4. The wide receivers did well. I know we were criticizing Hankerson, but he came through. Greg Olsen, again, big week 3, terrible week 4. T.Y. Montgomery, I know we weren't happy with that start at flex, and that definitely showed in the end. And the Chiefs was a big fat 0 for their defense against Cincinnati. They were absolutely blasted. So
I don't think we talked about that on the show because it came in after, but when we were at Wembley, me and Tom were saying we were just dumbfounded by that move. It made no sense from our point of view, considering they had the Rams as well. Tom's Tyrants, yeah, I mean, they had a great week, and you look, 3 of their best players really didn't do much. Julio Jones only got 38 yards. Jarvis Landry only got 7. Tyler Eifert only got 7 too. So definitely a bounce back week. Look, they're going to regress. It's going to happen, but between what they have been and what they were this week is probably somewhere I'd expect until they get the likes of Bryant back. So yeah, I think that they're definitely better than the record indicates. But the Dream Team, yeah, they've had 2 good weeks, but this week really kind of did show the weaknesses here. Carson Palmer is definitely a good option, and I think he'll do better in most weeks. While Justin Forsett actually had probably, I think, his best week of the season so far. Latavius Murray didn't have a great week. The receivers, as you say, stepped up this week, but that's, I'd say, probably been the rare occasion this season. And Greg Olsen came down a bit as well. The Dream Team, they're 2-2. I'm not convinced they're one of the better teams, but I definitely think they do have the potential to score.
I think both teams here are maybe a little bit fortunate to get 2-2, but I think that one team could definitely kick on, but at the moment that seems to be more likely to be Tom's Tyrants.
I don't think Tom's Tyrants is fortunate to be 2-2. I think that's right where they should be. The 2, let's face it, 2 horrific weeks they had in weeks 2 and 3. And the 2 tremendous weeks they had bookending that. I think it's fair enough that they're 2-2. And I guess you could say the same with the Dream Team. The 2 weeks in the middle, they weren't tremendous, but they got the job done. But weeks 1 and 4 were poor. Another interesting stat in this game, with the Dream Team's loss to Tom's Tyrants, they are now 1-7 all time against Tom's Tyrants. How about that?
Well, that's a poor record. That's a Ollie and Phil sounding record.
Yeah, it's getting there. Final game here, Gridiron Gang against the Romosexuals. Storylines into this one. Gridiron Gang were 2-1 entering the game, coming fresher for win, but they've kind of been a bit out of sorts since week 1 as well. While the Romosexuals, they they kind of hit back a little after a poor week 2, and they had a nice week 3. But in this one, Gridiron Gang took it 90-55, which was a week low.
Yeah. Well, Nate, can I just say, can I have your schedule? Because every week, you see, I mean, I don't think you put on the board 100 this in the last 4 weeks, but
not
you
since
have
week 1. Not since week.
Oh, in week 1, but for the last 3 weeks, you've won.
No, I've only won the last 2 weeks. I lost in week 2.
Okay, but you've scraped out these wins by not scoring big, and it continued this week. The Roma Sexuals with a quite pathetic 55, it has to be said. I don't think anyone sort of saw this coming, really. But there is, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult with this team. Sort of, again, another one of these teams that seems to be inconsistent. With 1 week they're scoring big, and the next week they're sort of not scoring at all. Players being sort of inconsistent. I don't think we would have, after the week 1, I don't think we would have envisaged Carlos Hyde to have only put, what's it, 14 points on the board in 3 weeks, after he smashed the Vikings. And really just the big players just not turning up. This week it's Fitz and Beckham not doing a lot. Forte was good, but Flacco only got 9. They've only had 1 player above single figures. But for you, Nath, I think your big player is DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh yeah, I love me some Nuke.
Having a big season. And yeah, he helped your team. You got a really good acquisition through Vincent Jackson. Who dropped him again?
That was Ollie, and I just like to point out my intentional no claiming of anyone last week, so I'd get a good waiver position, and I levied it into Vincent Jackson.
Absolutely, and yeah, so you jumped on that one, as you do. It's a sign of a good coach to make those big plays in the waiver wire when you get them, and you got him, and 20 points to the Gridiron Gang. That's probably sealed the deal for you this week, and Gridiron Gang now 3-1, very strong position. If they can sort of get their players going and make a few nice weeks and sort of get towards this 100, get their team more consistently towards the 100 mark, then you have a real chance here. Certainly to where other teams aren't scoring that high.
Going back to the Roman sexual side of the ball, I mean, as you were saying, like after week 1, we were ready to almost crown this team champion. They had Tony Romo, they had Matt Forte, that looked great. They had Carlos Hyde, who looked like he was going to be maybe even in the RB1 category. Ira Fitzgerald obviously re-emerged. Odell Beckham looked solid. Travis Kelce looked solid. And then they had Brandon Cooks, who you figured was going to be Drew Brees' number 1 target. But now we're at week 4, and without Tony Romo, Matt Forte is playing on a bad Bears team. Carlos Hyde, as you say, maybe that week 1 was actually a fluke. The Niners being down by so much, exactly what every analyst feared has happened. He's just not getting the ball a lot because they're down by so much. Ira Fitzgerald has regressed a bit from his past couple of weeks, which I think is fair to say. He was on a crazy tear. Odell Beckham, again, I don't think he's quite having a sophomore slump, but he's definitely down from his lofty heights of his rookie year. Travis Kelce's been struggling too. And Brandon Cooks, he, quite frankly, is just looking a bit like a bust at this point. Well, I still think this team, the eye test on this team looks tremendous, but as you quite rightly say, it's just not coming together right now. But then we go to the other side of the ball, Gridiron Gang. I know it was only a 90-point week, but there's a few caveats here. I was without Tom Brady. I was starting Derek Carr. Lamar Miller has yet to get going for me. Once again, 2 of my players got injured, Steve Johnson and Jordan Reed, so they didn't do a lot. But yeah, I mean, 90 points, I can't complain. 3-1, I can't complain. And an interesting nugget here too. I am now 2-0 against the Roman Sexuals, and I've never lost. So we'll get to the standings now as well, and we'll get to some. I thought I'd add in this new feature, a little league milestone thing, just looking at the records and whatnot. So firstly, for the standings in the south, every division is relatively the same. There is a 3-1 team and 2 2-0 teams. The only at least 2 2-0 teams. Sorry, 2 and 2 teams. There's a lot of twos in that sentence. Southampton, Aberdeen is leading at 3-1 with Tom Stones and the Dream Team at 2-2 apiece. Aberdeen is the only 0-4 team left in the league, despite being league high scorers. Moving to the Portsmouth division, Andy Dalton Red Zone 3-1, leading that division. Jeff Seals and Pakistan at 2-2. The Forge Flyers bringing up the rear at 1-3. Winchester division, Gridiron Gang 3-1. I don't think Gridiron Gang have been leading a division at least since 2011, probably even further. Maybe not since 2009. I don't know if I've ever led a division, but here we are. And the only team yet to concede 300 points, which is incredible. This team's over 400. I haven't conceded 300. Mental. Top cards and Nick Nan at 2-2, as are the Homosexuals, who now fall to the bottom. Some milestones here this week. Thomas Torrance with a win this week. It can get their 50th regular season win of all time. What else is there? Iknan, sorry, they lost last week, but they recently got their 40th win of the regular season and all time. As did Ben Necessities are at 50 all time, but obviously we know that's from last season. What else is cracking? That looks to be about it. So with that, we'll take a quick look at the power rankings. Obviously, I'll let you go read that yourself at the blog or on the NFL site. I'll just run down the names and let you give your take quickly. So power rankings. Right at the top, we've got Jeff Seals up from 7. Ben Necessities, despite another loss, at 2. Andy Dalton Red Zone at 3, holding pat. Homosexuals down to 4. Vedetne is up to 5. Iknan, I haven't included where they were last week, apologies, but they're at 6. Thomas Tyrants up to 7. The Tugfards bumping up 1 to 8. Pakistan sliding down a few to 9. Gridiron Gang sliding up 1 to 10. The Dream Team sliding down from 5 to 11. And Forward Flyers once again at 12.
I think this is fairly accurate, bar Jeff Seals being the top. I don't agree with this. I think they're reliant on free players, and I know it's kind of ironic me saying this, but I'm not sure.
I was just about to say, reliant on free players. Who does that remind me of?
Yeah, but I'm not sure that they're that good enough for him to be. I mean, this is not like Tuckbards of the last season where they had Charles, DeMarco, and Rogers. So I don't see Jeff Seals getting a win.
They're not
every
far
week.
off. I mean, look, they got Aaron Rodgers and Le'Veon Bell. Okay, I know there's no real standout third option. You figure that would be Alshon Jeffrey once he gets over his injury problems, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I mean, Jeff Seals had 2 good weeks and 2 fairly average weeks, and it's only going to take 1 hit from Rodgers and their season's over. And like you said, Tavon Austin and Kenny Stills, they're not getting that points every week. So they're sort of really relying on sort of free players to get the scores. And even then, you can't guarantee that the other players are going to get that many. I mean, I'm not sure on Jeff Seals that this team is a little bit of an enigma. But 2-2, we'll see. Really, what I was going to say, really, looking at the standings, is that you have 7 teams on 2-2, so it makes the power rankings at this point extremely difficult. Because,
yes, absolutely.
I mean, it could go either way, and the next couple of weeks are probably the critical weeks in the league, and you're going to see the front runners and the playoff contenders. And the people who are more likely to be in the toilet bowl.
James Milner Bowl now. Although I think whoever's in it names it collectively every year. I think that's what we came up with. But anyway. Yep, so that's the power rankings.
Looking further down.
Yep.
Just mentioning the toilet bowl. It may be called the James Milner Bowl at this point. Or definitely deserving to be sort of 12 and last, 'cause they don't look great here. Dream Team again, probably, yeah, that's about right. Pakistan probably put them a little bit higher than 9th, but I think generally it's a good attempt at the power rankings. So.
Thank you. Right, let's get on to next week and wrap up the show. So I guess there wasn't really a jump out marquee matchup for me this week, but this is the one I'm going to go with: the Tugfards versus the Dream Team. Both teams at 2-2. Obviously, you're on a 2-win streak, while the Dream Team is fresh off a loss. All time, you are 3-3 against the Dream Team, so this is split right down the middle. We've got a Thursday night game here, obviously recording on a Friday, so we'll factor this in. Projections right now have it a 102-99, a close one here. Changes to the lineups. You're starting Travis Benjamin, and Vernon Davis comes back to the lineup, as does Alan Robinson, in favour of Gary Barnage, Adrian Peterson, who is on a bye, and James Jones. Did I get that right? Yes, I did.
Yeah. I'm starting Benjamin.
Yeah.
Played Hilton, and Alan Robinson is at the flex.
Yeah. And on the Dream Team side of the ball, let's see. They've got Larry Donnell starting right now with Greg Olson on a bye. Martavis Bryant slides into that flex role for Devontae Adams, I believe. We'll talk about the Thursday night game quickly. T.Y. Hilton put up just under 9 points for you. Your views on this game?
Well, it wasn't a tremendous game, bearing in mind Indianapolis.
Not
oh wait,
so
you're talking about
yes,
the fantasy team. Sorry. Okay, yeah. Really important game for both teams. Both are 2-2. So win for both teams critical. For the Tugfards, this is a team at wide receiver who had at wide receiver here had some selection issues. Some players with some really good matchups here. James Jones obviously continuing his great form, sort of his return to being a top flight receiver. T.Y. Hilton, sort of consistent, but no touchdowns this season. Could he do it against Houston, who were torched last week? And then Travis Benjamin facing the Baltimore Ravens defense, who have been torched by wide receivers. And Allen Robinson, who has sort of an enticing matchup against Tampa Bay. Went with Hilton, fairly happy with the 8.8 receiving, 8.8 points he's put up. In terms of the Dream Team, it's looking like a strong side. He's brought Martavis Bryant back in, which is looking good. But I think there'll be some quite difficult matchups in there. In terms of Murray's got a difficult one against Denver. You think Pierre Garçon will struggle against Atlanta. So you're just not sure where the points coming from on this Dream Team.
Mm-hmm. Who are you taking?
I reckon it's gonna be close. I'm gonna say the Tugfards just because we've won 2 in a row. We're looking at a good team, a good outfit, and historically, I've always made good decisions on teams. So I'm gonna say, of course, I'm gonna take it.
Now, I really do want to take your team this week, and those are words I thought I'd never say. But outside of your top 3, Ryan Ingram and putting Randall in as your top 3, in my opinion, kind of says it all for this week. You've got some buys, and I think that's hurting. Peterson, obviously. But, I look on the other side of the ball, and yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. I'm not seeing a great deal there. Palmer doesn't have the best matchup against Detroit. Murray does not have a good matchup. The receivers on this team are very volatile, I think it's fair to say. The Titan is very weak, so even I think it's the marquee matchup, but I agree, it's going to be a close, possibly a low scorer. And let's face it, your team is the one in form, for whatever that's worth. You've got the 9-point advantage already, so heck with it, I'm going to pick your team.
Oh wow, it's a good day.
Yeah, it has to be.
It's the last time that you picked a Tugfards team, Nate. It's been a while, man.
Yeah, it has been a while. Let's not dwell on it. The Homosexuals take on the Tom's Tyrants. Storylines in this one: another set of 2 teams facing off against each other. I think this is the. Is this the first time? No. This is this is the third time these teams will have faced. Well, since 2010, the Homosexuals are actually 2-0 against Tom's Tyrants. Amazingly, projections in this one have Homosexuals winning 106-91. Lineup changes in this one. Nothing on the Homosexual side, though they're going to need a new kicker at some point with Nick Folk being on a bye. On Tom's Tyrants side of the ball, Doug Martin comes into the starting lineup for Chris Ivory, who was on a bye. Kamar Aiken comes straight from the waiver to the starting lineup in favour of Jarvis Landry, who was on a bye, and Willie Sneed is also in the starting lineup. I think over Ted Ginn, who they dropped. Your thoughts on this game?
I think the Homosexuals have issues, like we pointed out. It doesn't, again, sort of match-up issues here. I like Beckham against San Francisco, but if he doesn't get touchdowns early and New York gets sort of a big lead, then you could probably question whether Odell's going to get any points. Carlos Hyde on the other side is not a good matchup, bearing in mind his week, sort of 3 weeks. I just don't see the Homosexuals getting that many points, and they may need to do some sort of waiver wire shopping at this point because they're looking thin on the ground. In terms of Toms, they just gotta get. I think they just need to get the points over the line here, and again, some maybe questionable bringing Doug Martin straight into the starting player, like the starting lineup. Maybe would have put Abdullah, but then again, he has a sort of tight, like a tough matchup. I like Aiken and I like Julio, and I think those will be the players in the end that will clinch this game for Toms, and I see them going as 3-2.
Mm-hmm. While I think the talent for the most part on Tom's Tyrants roster is not it's not pretty when you're starting the likes of Woodhead, Martin, Aiken, Snead. I guess you can kind of lump Bradford into that since he's not been good this season. It's not pretty on paper, but they all have pretty tasty matchups. And with the Homosexuals players being in a little bit of a funk right now, some of them haven't got the best of matchups. Yeah, I'm going to take Tom's Tyrants in this one too. And it might even be a big week for them. Next game here, Gridiron Gang against Forge Flyers. Storylines entering this one. Gridiron Gang are 3-1, while Forge Flyers are 1-3. The history of this matchup is Gridiron Gang has effectively dominated it. They are 8-2 all time against Forge Flyers. The Gridiron Gang projected to lose, however, 107-109, but I do not have a kicker in yet. Lineup changes. Tom Brady comes into the starting lineup for Derek Carr, obviously back off the bye week. Shane Vereen currently in at start for Lamar Miller, who's on a bye, but that will change depending what happens with Anthony Dixon and Thomas Rawls. Vincent Jackson moves toward the starting wide receiver spot. Stevie Johnson comes out, and Golden Tate comes in for the flex. Richard Rogers comes in at tight end with Jordan Reed, obviously with the injury. Nuke Hopkins already played on Thursday as well, getting nearly 17 points. On Forward Flyers side of the ball, Garrett Blunt comes back into the lineup for CJ Anderson. Who else has changed? Charles Sims has come into the flex for, I think it was Lance Dunbar. Yes, it was. So your thoughts on this game?
Well, we mentioned earlier how DeAndre was going to be a big player for the Gridiron Gang and putting up the numbers again. Really great start for Gridiron Gang getting those points on the board. And they look to be strong going forward into this week, especially with having Brady back.
Yeah,
absolutely. And they have some good matchups as well. Vincent Jackson at Jacksonville, Shane Vereen at San Francisco. Richard Rogers is fairly touchdown dependent. But we'll see about that. And Golden State, Arizona. I think Arizona, they leaked the runs. They were leaky to the pass last week against St. Louis. So that's a sort of a smart play there. And Forge Flyers. It's the big question of whether Devonta can keep this up really for this team. And can he push another week of going over 30? I would seriously doubt it. But Atlanta sort of leaning on the run at this point. So it would definitely be interesting. As in terms of a Tuckford perspective, you'd hope not, but we'll see. I like Blount at running back. Depends really on the committee approach in New England. Tyrod Taylor is a good acquisition against Tennessee. And you hope for bounce back weeks for both Johnson and Brown. And as ever, we have to talk about Jimmy Graham, who we didn't mention but had a terrible week. So he really needs Graham to come back and put some points on the board against Cincinnati. Easier said than done, though.
Who are you taking in this one?
I'm going to take Gridiron Gang because I don't just about. But I think Forge Flyers with the matchups they got, they'll cut it close. But I think Gridiron Gang now with Brady back and the big players sort of performing, I think it's theirs to lose.
Yeah, I'm going to take my team too, as you say, Tom Brady back. Love it. I've got a few good matchups. Obviously, already 17 points on the board. You know what, my team, it might stumble to around 90 points, 100 points again. We'll see. But on the other side of the ball, as you say, Freeman, he's been posted 2 30-point weeks in a row. I mean, he's playing Washington this week, and for what it's worth, they've been pretty good against the run this season. Blunt, as you rightfully pointed out, he's in a bit of a committee right now, and I think it's noteworthy that New England actually signed Dion Lewis to a 2-year extension earlier in the week for a considerable amount of money, $4 million, I think it was, in the end, 4.4. So it's kind of a signifier of where the Patriots' backfield is right now. As you also rightfully said, their players are struggling and they haven't got the best of matchups. Calvin Johnson's going up against Patrick Peterson, who hasn't ceded 100 yards combined to receivers so far this season. So you think he's going to be on Johnson all day long. John Brown also playing Detroit, whose defense is also pretty good if we give him credit. As you said, Jimmy Graham hasn't been great either, and he's playing a pretty tough Cincy defense. So I'm going to go with my team too. I'll take the one for my team here. So our next game here, Iknan against Andy Dalton, Red Zone. Storylines heading into this one. The once division leading and looked like could be league leading Iknan are now 2-2 on a 2-game losing streak. While Andy Dalton, Red Zone finally get that one in the loss column, then have 3-1. The history of this matchup is ADRZ are 3-2 all time against Iknan, so not a lot in it. Iknan currently projected to win 122-102. In the starting lineup, Iknan has put Phillip Rivers back into the starting lineup. They play on Tuesday morning for us against Pittsburgh, so that's a good matchup. Matt Jones continues to stay in the starting lineup. Other than that, I don't think they changed. They had Aaron Foster play Thursday, who got 12 points, so not a bad outing by him. On Andy Dalton's red zone side of the ball, Russell Wilson has been benched for Eli Manning. Todd Gurley's in the starting lineup again. Steve Smith currently in now, but he will come out, obviously with the rib injury. But other than that, I think they're unchanged. Your thoughts on this game?
I think this is the week where you'll see Iknan recover and bounce back. They've had 2 sort of not great weeks. They haven't been terrible, but they haven't been great. They've finally got the running back seemingly sorted. Now with Aaron getting above 10 points for the first time this season. It's a little. I'm not sure on Matt Jones for the second running back, but we'll see. Really sort of needs Andre Ellison back in this team. And you think when it does, it will be really a formidable team. But yeah, I just see some good matchups here. Denarius against Oakland, sorry, why do I keep calling him Andre? Antonio Brown against San Diego, Martellus Bennett against Kansas City, and Mike Evans with a chance to bounce back from what you said about his sophomore slump. And the Broncos D, definitely the best defense in the league right now. In terms of ADRZ, it's not a great situation for them to be dropping Russell Wilson and their second quarterback being Eli Manning. It's a slight improvement, but I mean, you think if against San Francisco, you tend to think that if they go up two scores, then Eli's not going to be throwing that much, and therefore there's not going to be that many points. However, I do like Todd Gurley coming in at running back. That's a gutsy move, because he was excellent against Arizona, and I think that's a ballsy move. I like it, but whether it will get points against Green Bay, 4-0, is another thing. Andre Green is tough against Seattle.
AJ,
there he is playing at home. Smith is obviously out, so he will have to change that. But yeah, I think Ignan have this game. They're favourites for this game, and if they produce, which I think they will win fairly comfortably by about 20 points. I don't see ADRZ troubling them too much, although they do have some good matchups there. Equally, some quite difficult ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ignan definitely have some juicy matchups this week. I agree. They just need their players to start firing on the cylinders on ADRZ's side of the ball. Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying about Eli Manning. It is a much softer defense, though, so I think it's a better play than Wilson against Cincinnati. Seattle's offense hasn't been great thus far. I like Todd Gurley coming in. AJ Green playing Seattle, that's a tough one. Obviously, Steve Smith's going to come out. And Alan Hearns, who he's had a nice couple of weeks, but very, very unclear if he'll be able to keep that consistency. I disagree with what you said about Andrew Ellington coming back for Ignan, though. I think Chris Johnson's pretty much cemented himself as the starter there. I'm not really sure how much of a role Ellington's going to have there. But anyway, we're talking about this game. I think it could be a high score, actually. But I think Ignan's probably got the edge on talent and matchups, so I would agree. I'm going to go with them this week. Next game here, Pakistan against Bare Necessities. Storylines in this one. Bare Necessities obviously searching for that first win. If they go without another win this week, they will be 0-5. 0-5. Other than Ford Flyers last year, I'm not sure if a team's ever started 0-5. On the other side of the ball, Pakistan 2-2, fresher for win. Projections in this one have Pakistan winning 106-96. Lineup changes. Marshall Lynch currently in the starting lineup for Pakistan, but obviously that could change. Owen Daniels in the starting lineup at tight end in favour of Carl Rudolph, who was cut. Isaiah Crowell also sliding into the flex for Richard Jennings, who has been benched. I think maybe Alfred Morris has come back into the lineup as well. I can't remember if he was a flex last week. But the necessity side of the ball, they put Alex Smith in as starter. Obviously, they had Ryan Fitzpatrick last week, still without Andrew Luck. Dion Lewis goes into the starting running back role, coming back for bye week for Jonathan Stewart, who is on a bye instead. Rob Gronkowski comes back into the starting lineup, and Chris Johnson is in the flex. I can't remember if that changed. Bare Necessities have one Thursday night player, Dante Moncrief. He got 0.3 points, so not a great start for Bare Necessities. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, the steep hill that Bare Necessities had to climb to do something this season has just got steeper. Bearing in mind, Moncrief got free receiving yards. I was angry by looking at who got 16.7 points. And I'm sure Thomas Tyrant is equally as angry to see Andre Johnson get that amount of yards, which was just a joke, a Christmas joke for everyone who's had sort of
the revenge game.
Andre Johnson and has discarded him in disgust. That was interesting. But yeah, bare necessities. I mean, it's just unbelievable, really, that they're 0-4, and if they lose this game, it really is season over for them. And the fact that Dante Moncrief has only scored 3 receiving yards is a huge blow for them. Bearing in mind he's been sort of the sort of in-form wide receiver for Indianapolis. Luckily, he does have Gronk coming back this week. He'll fill in some points. He's got Chris Johnson in the flex. But equal, and I actually like Dion Lewis running back. Definitely, if New England take control against Dallas on Sunday, then he's going to get quite an opportunity to score, to pile on the points. But then again, there's some sort of questionable plays, and most notably, Alex Smith coming in at quarterback, still suffering really from the Andrew Luck injury. Really didn't need him to be out another week, but I guess him being on the short week was tough. Also, TJ Yeldon had a good week last week, but you wouldn't think that he'd be able to keep it up. He does have a good matchup. And Seahawks defense against the Cincinnati could suffer if it could suffer, bearing in mind they're away. And for Pakistan, good week last week, but sort of a tough week this week. He's got Marshawn, who is limited participant, sort of like questionable. It looks like he's going to be a game time decision. Andy Dalton, not really going to. You wouldn't think he's going to score that many points against the Seattle D. Alfred Morris with all the confusion of the Redskins running back. Cobb and Allen are good plays. Owen Daniels might not play. Corral there's question marks there. And the Giants did maybe a good play for this week, bearing in mind their matchup. I think this is going to be a close game. I think this is going to be one of the best games because there's some good matchups here for both teams. I just see, with the season bare necessities they're having, I just see Pakistan taking this because they're just getting no good fortune, and we did think they were one of the better teams going into the season. So I'm going to choose Pakistan by a couple of points. I'm sorry, Dave.
You know, I'm going to say the opposite of that and say bare necessities have been so good. I cannot believe they're going to lose another week, and the reasons why are Pakistan have some ugly matchups this week. Andy Dalton, as you say, playing Seattle. Alfred Morris playing Atlanta defense that shouldn't be slept on. They're going to be without Marshawn Lynch. Cobb has a tough matchup against St. Louis. Keenan Allen against Pittsburgh. That's probably the lone bright spot, especially since San Diego will be without Malcolm Floyd and Steve Johnson. Owen Daniels is a good one against Oakland too, but he's not kind of utilized how the other Titans that have done well against Oakland have been, so I think you've got to temper expectations a bit there. And as you say, Corral against Baltimore, it's not a pretty matchup. While on the other side of the ball, the matchups are very, very juicy. Alex Smith against Chicago, Dion Lewis playing a Dallas defense, but the way the Patriots use him, he's going to get his touches. Yeldon playing a soft Tampa Bay defense. Sanders playing Oakland. Gronkowski obviously back. And Chris Johnson playing a Detroit defense that hasn't been tremendous against the run. I cannot believe bare necessities are going to go 0-5, so I'm going to pick them to win.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but the fact is, bare necessities, they've had ridiculoso scores and like results against them. And you think that this, bearing in mind what has happened, will carry on. I mean, it's the fact that it has carried on.
Scoring points.
It's
Why?
Ridiculous.
They're the highest scoring team.
They're 0-4. It's, I mean, it's jokes. It's absolute jokes.
What's the phrase? Form is temporary, class is permanent. I'm going with that argument for why they'll win this week.
Okay. Let's hope so.
Our final game here, Jeff Seals against the Detonators. Storylines into this one. Jeff Seals at 2-2. Detonators leading the Southampton division at 3-1. Both teams coming in off of a win. Jeff Seals currently projected to win this one 124 to 104. Lineup changes. Jeff Seals, they have Elton Jeffrey in the lineup, but I'm not sure if he will play. Other than that, I think they're unchanged. The Detonators, let's have a look. Kendall Wright comes into the flex for Carlos Williams. I think that is it. Thoughts about this game?
Again, crucial game for both teams, but Detonators Detonators is a 3-1. They have a chance to really sort of put their mark on a playoff run. Jeff Seals, I've noted my sort of doubts about this team, and to only get 1 point from their defense is not good whatsoever.
Sorry, that was the Thursday night game.
That was the Thursday night game. Yeah. Yeah. So it's difficult. It's difficult to say really because we don't know how the Bear Detonators is going to do. Jeff Seals have been relatively consistent compared to some of the other teams they've played, where they have like digged out victories from sort of low scores. Jeff Seals have been actually relatively consistent. So it's in terms of where Bear Detonators is going to get the points from. Mm-hmm. And they have some difficult matchups this week. Hill going against Seattle. Macklin, I guess, is a better matchup against Chicago. I mean, let's say just take Peyton and Murray. They've been very, very disappointing. Murray has been probably the biggest bust of the draft so far. He was taken in the first round and hasn't. I mean, let's have a look at it. Second round. Sorry, he hasn't scored over 25 points for last season's leading running back, and it's just you don't see him in the offense he's playing in getting that many runs.
They've actually arguably been better with Ryan Matthews as the starter, which is just...
Yeah, it's just... And this regression by some of the big players is noticeable, especially with Peyton, which has been talked about quite a bit. I'm going to, despite my doubts with Jeff Seals, and I don't think they're as good a team as people tend to think they are, I'm going to go with Jeff Seals to win this game based on the fact I don't see Bear Detonators scoring past 90 points based on that team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'll go with Jeff Seals here too. I really like the roster. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he's a solid bet for points every week. Le'Veon Bell, he's a solid bet for points every week. Melvin Gordon, I think he's an emergent guy, but he's going to have his weeks. Julian Edelman and Alshon Jeffrey, if he plays, are two solid options. And Amari Cooper's a great receiver too, even though he's going up against a really tough defense. Well, as you say, on the other side of the ball, the Pistons just aren't firing right now for some of the Detonators players. As you also point out, they've got some tough matchups. So, yeah, I could absolutely see a Jeff Seals win this week. I think it probably will be close, this one, but I will go with Jeff Seals as well. So, that is all the games previewed. And another fairly long episode, apologies, but lots and lots of good analysis and stuff to cover. So, enjoy the week 5 games. Hopefully, no more players will get injured, as I don't think there are really any more players left to get injured. I'll try and get back to the regular programming schedule of Wednesday next week. I know everyone likes it when the podcasts go out earlier. I was super busy this week, so I wasn't able to. And no one would help me do the podcast yesterday, so I had to do it today. But we'll try and get back to it Wednesday. And as always, when you're watching the NFL games and crazy things are happening that you can't explain, always remember to tweet using the hashtag #CheersRoger. Goodbye.
Roger. Brilliant.